So El Chapo just got sentenced to life and they've took billions from him. This video is about where the money really goes, who is the biggest mafia, way more powerful, way more in control than these drug lords. And I'm talking about the political mafia. So I learned about this by writing and researching about Pablo Escobar for the last 4 or 5 years. The politicians use the drug lords to make the drug money. That might sound absolutely insane, but everything to do with the war on drugs is completely insane, as I'm about to explain. So the politicians made drugs illegal. They made completely worthless plants like weed. Weed was called weed because it grew at the side of roads. It was worthless, nothing. Cocaine, heroin. They made these completely worthless plants worth more value than gold. So let's go to cocaine. El Chapo, heavy into cocaine. Escobar, cocaine. In the beginning, Escobar was smuggling it, having it flown over to America. Later on, his routes were used by other drug lords and he taxed them. That's how his business changed over the year. So, Peru, Bolivia, late 1970s, Escobar can get coca paste for $60 a kilo. Because the politicians had made drugs illegal, the value of a kilo of cocaine in America back then was $60,000. So I'm talking a kilo of coca paste, $60, Peru, Bolivia, 60,000 on the streets of America. So the politicians know by keeping drugs illegal that the black market profits every single year increase. And that's the biggest incentive in the history of the world for the mafia to mass produce and flood the entire world of drugs. The politicians know this. They know drug laws are an absolute disaster for society. Why don't they stop it? Because they put the money in their own pockets. So let me just go back to Escobar before I get back to Chapo. So in the 80s, Colombians were dominating the cocaine business going into America. And yeah, as you know, the quantity supplied increased and the Cali cartel, their numbers increased as well. The price of $60,000 a kilo steadily went down, talking it going down to like in the 30,000s, then 20,000s, then into the teens. When I was in America, I could get a kilo of cocaine from the Cali cartel for about 12,000 a kilo. So all this drugs is constantly flooding into America from these cartels. Now, they estimate revenue for the Medellin cartel in a year was $30 billion. Where does that money go? So Escobar gives a huge amount of that money in bribery. We're talking billions, millions is going in bribery to the political candidates. Whoever's going to win the next election, those people are bought and sold for by the cartels. They put the politicians in power. They put the president of Colombia in power with that money. So money right away is going to the politicians. Then the head of the army. The army has got to protect the cartel's interests, especially in the areas that they are operating in. So Pablo Escobar, Medellin, Gacha, he's Bogota, that area, and other areas towards the coast. You've got Cali cartel over in Cali. You've got North Valley cartel. You've got all these different cartels all across Colombia. So they've got to buy out the heads of the army. Now, that money is an absolute staggering amount, like I said. Then you've got to buy out the heads of the police. But you're buying out the police force right down to the foot soldiers. So you're literally thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people on your payroll. So as all this money is going to people working for the government, then the leaders of the country have got to be in compliance with the war on drugs of America by pretending to fight the war on drugs. So Escobar would tell the police, just go and raid that warehouse. There's a load of cocaine there. Invite the media. Get your photo ops. The police will all get promotions for busting this much cocaine. And the police chief will get a promotion. And then as soon as all the media have gone, that cocaine was handed right back to Escobar and he sent it on his way to America. So this scam is being run all over the world, presently to this day. So it got transferred over to Mexico. How did it end up with El Chapo? While the Colombians were making all these headlines in the 90s, in the 80s, Escobar was making all these headlines. The Mexicans were rising up more silently. There was El Padrino, the Godfather in Mexico. He was the head. They put him in prison. Then all of his underlings, he thought he could keep running it, but all of his underlings went to war, including El Chapo. So the Colombians used to pay the Mexicans to take the cocaine into America because the Colombians initially were going in on the Florida coast. Norman's Cay was the island Carlos Leda had, one of the head factions of the Medellin cartel, which is just a little jump over to Miami. So all these planes were coming in, landing on Norman's Cay, taking the cocaine onto the Florida coast. They'd drop it on the coast or they'd land at airports. Boats would come out and get it. Lots of it was lost at sea because it wasn't wrapped properly. But then we had the South Florida Task Force, George H.W. Bush, President Reagan, all that stuff clamped down. So they started to bring it in through Mexico. They're paying the Mexicans a cut. As the Medellin and Cali cartels are losing their power, Cali cartel was dominating in the 90s, but then started to fall. Those guys got extradited to America early 2000s, and they're serving life now. But they will, the heads of the Cali cartel, the two brothers who are alive still, Miguel and Gilberto, they're in federal prison, and they are eligible for release when they get into about 18, 90 something years old, something like that. So the Mexicans are thinking, hey, why are we paying, taking this money from the Colombians to get paid to take their cocaine when we can do it ourselves? So that's how the Mexican dominance in the cocaine market came about. Now, in Mexico, the whole country is divided into plazas. These are areas that are controlled by the cops or the military and the government. So to run drugs through a plaza, you have to pay those officials off. Again, all that money that's been made from the cocaine is going to government officials. If you want like a plaza that is on the border with America, so let's say Texas, the plaza down there where the cocaine is crossing right into America, then you are talking multi-million-dollar contributions to the top politicians, the top army and police chiefs in the country to have access to that level of plaza. There was a president of Mexico in the 80s, and he ended up living in a mansion in Ireland with like $500 million net worth because of all this money that he was taking from the cartels. And the cartels, it's the drug lords that will go to prison for life. It's the drug lords that will get shot dead, that will get killed. They're fall guys. They're complete and utter fall guys. At the end of the day, the government knows by keeping drugs illegal, there's going to be this black market estimated up to $500 billion to $1 trillion a year. And the government knows that they can pretend to fight a war on drugs and put all that money into their own pockets. And it's the same in America. America has got this highest prison population in the world right now. The legal system is one of the biggest employers in the country. And if you look at the arrests, a lot of the arrests revolve around drugs. The mass incarceration came about where they just started putting hundreds of thousands of people arrested in America for weed possession. This whole thing is a scam on the taxpayer by the political mafia. Escobar, Chapo, it doesn't matter who comes along. That black market gets bigger every year because the politicians keep it illegal until they make it legal and deflate that. It's never going to end. And it's the people of America who voted for weed legalization and decriminalization that's causing this money to reduce. But politicians, at the end of the day, they want to keep putting it in their own pockets. And that's why I believe the market is kept criminalized and all this money ends up in their hands. And it's really sick. It's an absolute travesty that the taxpayer is forking out for this fake war on drugs while all these thieves, these wicked, evil politicians are putting that money into their own pockets. So that is my take on what just went down with Chapo. It's exactly the same thing that happened with Escobar, except for he got killed. Cali cartel ended up in federal prison. And there's already, the Mexican cartels, they work with the government. One cartel works with the government. And it hands in its competition, the other cartels, to the war on drugs. So the Mexican army goes in and tries to take those guys out. And Chapo was working with the president of Mexico for years, but at the end of the day, the time comes when he had to be sold out and handed over to the Americans. And that's just keeps going on to this day, and it won't be stopped until sanity comes, when drug laws are changed and everything is completely legalized and decriminalized. So cheers from the Liverpool studio. We just filmed a podcast with Wildman. He just co-interviewed another guest, and he also did another podcast on his own because another guest didn't show up. He's doing 2 more co-interviews tomorrow. So things are going great with Wildman. In the videos, we've really shouted out to everybody who's donated and helping the True Crime podcast go forth. Got demonetized on nearly all of the True Crime videos, so couldn't make the production costs back. And now we've got Patreon, Just Giving, PayPal, and we got merch, we got books and t-shirts. So we've been blown away by all the support. People have come forward and helped us. Money's come in now to cover another 2 or 3 podcasts. So for this next couple of weeks, there's going to be 2 podcasts a week. There's going to be a Monday night premiere at 6, a Wednesday night premiere at 6. And we found with these premieres, it does help give the podcast much more momentum when it's getting launched out there, and it's getting that momentum going, provides longevity to the podcast. I think Wildman's first one, our English enforcer in Arizona jail, is at about 60,000+ now in just under 2 weeks. So that's why we're doing that. And I'm also cutting the podcast up into lots of little clips, because if a whole podcast is demonetized, then we're finding that on appeal, more than half of the clips are actually being allowed to be monetized. So that is helping us make some of the money back as well. So again, appreciate all of your love and support. We're going to keep it real, keep these podcasts coming, keep getting the harrowing, hard-hitting true crime stories, edgy guests, put more people forward to us, suggestions, and contact people who you think would be good guests to come on, and we'll see what we can do. So cheers from Liverpool. Thank you very much for your support.